and welcome to tonight's zoning board of appeals hearing. Let me introduce some members of town government that assist this board. To my left is Martin Simon, assistant town attorney. To his left is Blaise Donadio, planner in the planning department. You are all here tonight seeking relief from the Smithtown zoning ordinances, and it's our job to try to help you achieve the relief you are requesting whenever possible. It's up to you to provide this board with precise and accurate information so we can make a decision based on the facts presented. This board must consider the 5 area variance considerations in order to render a decision, and they are as follows. Number 1, whether an undesirable change will be produced in the character of the neighborhood or a detriment to nearby properties will be created by the granting of the variance. Number 2, whether the benefit sought by the applicant can be achieved by some method feasible for the applicant to pursue other than the area variance. Number 3, whether the requested area variance is substantial. Number 4, whether the proposed whether the proposed variance will have an adverse effect or impact on the physical or environmental conditions in the neighborhood or district. And number 5, whether the alleged difficulty was self-created, which consideration shall be relevant to the decision of the board, but shall not necessarily preclude the granting of the variance. Procedures for tonight's meeting. Cases will be called in the order they are advertised. When you are called, please present your certificates of postings or mailings to Mr. Donadio. Then you can go to the podium where you'll state your name and address for the record, and then proceed to tell us why you need your variance. At the end of your presentation, if anyone in the audience would like to speak on your case, they will be given one opportunity to do so. Then the applicant can come back to the podium to answer their concerns. Once the public hearing is closed, no further information will be accepted concerning the case. There are 3 ways to find out about your case. You can stay after the hearing, but there's no guarantee that your case will be acted on tonight. You can call the planning office tomorrow after 12 p.m., or you can wait and be notified by mail. We do have 2 adjournments tonight. The first adjournment is case number 18706, James and Margaret Kilka. That has been adjourned to May 5th. And the next case is case 18605, Cafe Red CRK Holding Group. That has been adjourned to August 9th.
Mr. Chairman, there is no May 5th hearing date. It would be May 10th and May 24th.
Oh, I'm sorry, May 10th?
And 24th.
I'm sorry, May 24th.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. August 9th. August 9th? Yeah. Okay. All set?
Yes.
Okay. The first case on the agenda is case number 18702, Taylor Montesano, 411 Sunset Lane, Smithtown. The location of the property is the south side of Sunset Lane, 610 feet west of Brookside Drive. The property is owned R21. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the minimum front yard setback from 50 feet to 46 feet for a proposed 540 square foot second-story addition.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Esteban Lopez, 210 South Haven Avenue, Medford, New York, 11763. I'm on behalf of the applicant.
Do you have power of attorney?
Excuse me?
Do you have your affidavits, and do you have a power of attorney?
Yes, I have it all here.
Okay.
Please.
Oh, sure.
filled in by you or the principal. So why don't you just take an adjourn date and just fix that up, and if you have any questions, you can reach out to us. No, I'm sorry. Just make sure they complete it. If you have any questions, you can reach out to the planning department prior to your next hearing. It's of no effect at this point. The power's insufficient.
Okay. So they're gonna have to adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, applicant's going to have to adjourn. The power of attorney is insufficient.
There's small green and white. Make sure you get that all put together, so when you come back, you have everything. Sure. Tomorrow you have to contact our office. You'll need a new sign and a new affidavit of posting to do for the next hearing date when the chairman issues you a date.
Yeah, that's got to be all completed prior to coming in. Okay.
All right?
So,
Sir? Sir? We're going to adjourn your meeting, your hearing to May 10th? And then you'll have all the necessary paperwork, right? Yes. Okay. All right, thank you.
all right. Okay. Moving to the next case, case number 18703, John Ferriello, 29 Hubble Street, Comac. The location of the property is the northeast corner of Hubble Street and Ruth Boulevard. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum rear yard setback from 50 feet to 47 feet for a proposed 400-square-foot addition, to permit a fence greater than 4 feet in the required front yard, and to reduce the front yard setback on Ruth Boulevard from 10 feet to 3 feet for an existing 6-foot PVC fence.
Can I have the applicant, please?
Small green and white certified building And you are the applicant? Okay. Is that not? Do either of you have your notary stamp with you? Okay. So before you leave tonight, you just have to give us the green and white receipts. Okay. Okay. Are you speaking, or are you having him speak for you? Yeah, okay.
Okay. Good evening.
Good evening.
You're the applicant, sir?
I'm the applicant, John Ferriello, yes, 29 Hubble Street, Comac, New York, 11725.
Is this gentleman going to speak on your behalf?
No, I'm going to
Oh,
speak.
you're gonna do it?
Yeah.
Go right ahead.
Just want to add an addition onto my house for extra livable area, so just requesting for the variance.
And you want a fence?
A 6-foot fence, yes.
And you want it from 10 feet to 3 feet off the property line?
Yeah, if that's how it was measured, yes.
Anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thank you.
No, thank you. Planning?
No, thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Have a motion to close the application, please?
Make a motion to close the application.
Second?
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you guys for your help.
The next case on the agenda is case number 18704, Peter McGuire, 92 Brookside Drive, Smithtown. The location of the property is the south side of Brookside Drive, 1,199 feet north of Sunrise Lane. The property is owned R21. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the minimum side yard setback from 16 feet to 12 feet for a proposed 186 square foot addition.
Good evening. You the applicant, sir?
I am, yeah. Hi.
Just state your name and address to the record, please.
Name is Peter McGuire, 92 Brookside Drive.
Would like this gentleman to speak on your behalf?
Yes, please.
Okay, fine.
Thank
Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. For the record, my name is Michael Morbillo, architect, Spire Design Group. Office is located at 273 Lake Avenue, St. James, New York. The application before you this evening is for an addition, a side addition on the residence, a little bit wrapping around the rear. The purpose of the addition is to basically enclose an exterior cellar basement. So there's cellar stairs to the basement. Right now, there's a concrete stair that's on the side of the house. And the house was developed over the years where there had been additions done maybe a few decades ago. And at the time, there was never an interior access into the basement. So the only means of getting into the current basement is like a partial crawl, there's a crawl space and then a partial basement. And they'd like to enclose that so there's an interior access to the basement. Their hope is to, we also have a permit in to make like a recreation room down the basement, because there is a basement space that's down there. They have some children, and they would like to get, a direct access to the outside, and then also an interior access into the basement. Also, part of the addition, there's a small mudroom that's being expanded just behind the house. So if you look on the application, you see in the two circled areas on the first floor plan, one area to the side is for the stairs, and then behind it is a small mudroom area. The request is not substantial. We're going down to a 12-foot setback. That's about a 25% encroachment. It's not going to have a visual impact or adversely affect the character of the neighborhood. It's only going to be a one-story addition. It's not going to be 2 stories. The house is presently 2 stories. This will remain as 1 story. It's not going to have any environmental impacts, and there's really no other way to do this. The only way actually presently into the basement space, and certainly they didn't create the conditions of the lot. The lots are a little bit narrower over there, and the house apparently was just developed without an interior access to the stairs. So if the board has any questions at this time, I'd be more than happy to answer them.
All right, thank you. Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thanks.
Planning?
No, thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience who'd like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Motion carried. Thank you.
The next case on the agenda is case number 18705, Sharon Belser, 33 Wren Drive, Hauppauge. The location of the property, the west side of Wren Drive, 204 feet south of Gull Drive. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum side yard from 12 feet to 2 feet, to reduce the total side yards from 28 feet to 22 feet for an existing 700-square-foot deck.
Good evening.
Good evening. I just submitted the paperwork. We had previously submitted the power of attorney form to planning, so I just waiting for verification on that. We good? Okay. Sorry, for the record, again, my name is Michael Morbillo, architect, Inspire Design Group, offices at 273 Lake Avenue, St. James, New York. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, the application before you this evening is for the legalization of an existing deck that is located in a side yard or not in the required rear yard. So basically, part of what the request is also is that we're 2 feet off of the property line. So just to clarify what you're seeing on the survey site plan, we have a deck which towards the front of the house is basically at grade, and the property behind the house drops off. It slopes downward away from the house. So what we have is a deck that is basically at grade, closer to the front of the property, and then it gets to a height of about 2 feet towards the back. In essence, it's, the deck doesn't really have much of an impact on anybody. It's right behind a fence. And I brought some additional pictures, just some street view pictures to show that, this doesn't really have much of an impact. You can't see it. There's a 6-foot fence that is right next to the deck or the deck in question, and you can't even notice it from the neighbor's property, and you kind of barely see it from the street. So I'm just going to put this up just for impact purposes. Basically, what you're seeing is it's a picture of my client's house is to the right, the neighbor's house is to the left. You don't see this. There's vegetation. There's a 6-foot fence separating the neighbor's house from my client's house. So it doesn't create any undesirable impact on the neighborhood, especially since the ground slopes off. But due to the fact that it is 24 inches at the back of the deck, we're here because the placement of it doesn't conform. It certainly is not creating any environmental impact. There are other decks that I think may be in the pictures, so hopefully it's not too confusing. If you look at the site plan, you'll see that there's other built prior decks on the back of the house which are attached, which don't require any variances. So some of the pictures show the deck that's right on grade. There's a shed next to it, and then there's some other decks which are in the middle, sort of the middle portion of the house, which are basically up at a higher level, up at like a second floor level. The only one that we needed to apply for a variance for was the one that's highlighted on the overhead, and that doesn't exceed 2 feet in height. So we asked if the board has any questions at this time, be more than happy to answer them.
Would you say the majority of the deck is at ground level?
I would say yes. Yeah, if you look at some of the pictures, you'll see that the ground is starting to step off. You can even almost see like the fence is stepping. That's not a great picture. I'm sorry about that. That's the main deck at the house. But yeah, that one there, you could see there's like a little 3-foot garbage enclosure that's like a little area across from the shed, right in front of the fence is like a 6-foot fence that's kind of stepping down with the grade. So that stepping down, basically, it hides it, and it's, in general, it follows the grade.
All right, thank you. Anyone else on the board have any questions on the application?
No, thank you.
Planning?
No, thank you.
Audience like to be heard on this application? You have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor? Aye. Motion carried.
Thank you very much. Have a good evening.
You too.
The next case on the agenda is case number 18707. Excuse me, Marilyn Kane, 14 Scholar Lane, Comac. The location of the property is the south side of Scholar Lane, 273 feet east of Hayrick Lane. The property is zoned R21. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the minimum front yard setback from 50 feet to 39 feet for an existing 162 square foot front porch with 81 square foot ramp.
Good evening.
Good evening. Kevin Daly on behalf of the owner, who is present.
All right,
Marilyn Kane, should she come up?
I would need her first, yes.
Oh. Sorry.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Could you just state your name and address for the record, please?
Okay, Marilyn Kane, 14 Scholar Lane, Comac, New York.
Thank you. And would you like this gentleman to
Yes.
speak on your behalf? Okay,
Yes.
fine. Thank you very much. Okay, now could you state your name, spell your last name so we get it correct for the record, and give your address, please?
Kevin Daly, D-A-I-L-Y, 201 Northwest Drive, Farmingdale, New York, 11735.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
We're here tonight on behalf of the owner, requesting a variance for her property at 14 Scholar Lane, Comac, Section 60, Block 4, Lot 5. The property is zoned R21. We're requesting a variance to reduce the minimum front yard setback from 50 to 39 for an existing 162 square foot front porch with an 81 square foot ramp. The porch and ramp were built approximately 5 years ago in an effort to assist Marilyn's grandson, Jamie, who has cerebral palsy, to get in and out of the front of the house. The porch is about 3 feet above grade at its highest point, and although the porch comes off of the house 13.5 feet, 3 feet of that area is for the ramp and the landing, and there's also a bay window which comes off the house about 2.5 feet as well. So there's only about 8 feet from the bay window to the railing of area on that porch. Marilyn has lived in the house for 45 years. We spoke to both of the abutting neighbors. They have no objection to the existing porch. Their property is directly across the street from a school, and there are bushes which run across the frontage of the property, which create a buffer. The neighbor to the east has a similar porch, so we wouldn't be setting a precedent. I don't know if there's a permit for that. And the nature of the houses in the area, most of them are high ranches and two-story homes with like front porticos, which come out maybe 6 feet or so. Although this variance was self-created because they did not file a building permit initially, it was done out of necessity at the time for her grandson.
Right, thank you. Does anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thank you.
Planning?
No, thank you.
Anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded.
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next case on the agenda is case number 18708. Elizabeth and Gibson Kircher, 2 Dove Lane, Smithtown. The location of the property, the southwest corner of Dove Lane and New Mill Road. The property is zoned R21. The applicant is requesting a variance to reduce the minimum front yard setback on New Mill Road from 50 feet to 22 feet for a proposed 18-foot by 36-foot in-ground swimming pool.
Good evening.
Good evening. Elizabeth Gibson Kircher, 2 Dove Lane, Smithtown, New York. Basically, the variance is for the fence, and I'm requesting that I think on there, the setback, the fence to be moved from 50 feet to 22 feet.
Okay. So this is just going to enclose your pool? The
Yes,
fence enclosure?
it's currently enclosed. It'll be bumped out a little past the front of my house.
Okay. Anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thank you.
Planning?
No, thank you.
Excuse me. Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next case on the agenda is case number 18710. Stephen Bacard and Natalie Kropp, 222 Hawthorne Road, Kings Park. The location of the property is the west side of Hawthorne Road, 216 feet south of Birch Road. The property is zoned R10. The applicants are requesting variances to reduce the minimum rear yard setback from 35 feet to 30 feet, to reduce the minimum side yard from 12 feet to 8 feet, which is existing at 6 feet, to reduce the total side yards from 28 feet to 14 feet, which are existing at 12 feet, for an existing 194-square-foot raised wood deck with trellis, to increase the maximum permitted paved surface in the front yard from 25% to 40%, to decrease the minimum distance of paving to any lot line from 1 foot to 0 for an existing asphalt driveway.
Good evening.
Good evening, how are you?
Good.
I'm Stephen Bocard of 222 Hawthorne Road.
All right.
I'm Natalie Kropp of 222 Hawthorne Road, and we give permission to Mary Ellen Curtis to speak on our behalf.
Okay, fine. Thank you. You could sit down. Good evening.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Mary Ellen Curtis, Curtis, 22 North Creek Road, Northport, New York, 11768. I come before the board for application number 18710, also known as 22 Hawthorne Road, Kings Park. Ms. Kropp and Mr. Bocourt are the owners of the property, but not the creators of the reason why we come before the board. Ms. Kropp and Mr. Bocourt purchased the home in the beginning of this year. The prior owner rebuilt the existing deck. He raised it a few feet and finished the basement without a permit. He received a notice from the building department stating that he needed a permit. After making an application, he was told he needed a variance. The existing home was built in 1976, and it was built on a non-conforming lot, which needed a variance in order to be built, and it was variance number 5355. We are asking to reduce the rear yard from 35 feet to 30 feet, the side yard to 8 feet, where 12 feet is needed, but 6 feet exists, and a total side yard of 14 feet, where 12 feet exists for the rear deck. We are also requesting 0 paving distance for the existing driveway. The deck falls well within the character of the neighborhood and does not produce any undesirable change to the neighborhood. It does not have an impact on the environmental conditions of the neighborhood, and it is a non-conforming lot, which creates a hardship. It is Ms. Kropp and Mr. Bocart's hope that the board will find in favor of the application.
Okay. On the driveway, on the east side,
Yes,
does that encroach over?
it certainly does.
Encroaches how far?
About 5 feet.
It encroaches 5 feet over the
Yes.
property line.
Correct. Yep. They did not, this is an existing driveway. I don't know how long it's been there, but I know the previous owner did not put the driveway in either. It's been there for quite some time. I do know that I believe the gentleman who lives next door is actually here, and whatever he would like to do, we would be more than happy to take care of it for him.
Okay, fine. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else on the board have any questions on the application?
No, thank you.
Planning?
No, thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Come on up, please. Good evening.
Good evening. We're Kathy and Eric Johnson. We
Okay.
live at 224 Hawthorne Road next door. And when the previous owner bought the house, he had a survey done, and we realized that the driveway was, I thought it was 2 feet over the property line. So we're just concerned about how the variance affects the property line, because they're asking for a 0, right? A 0 clearance for the existing, and it's already 2 feet over.
Right.
So that, and I'm sure we're going to work something out, but we just have a concern about it.
Okay. Well, we can't grant anything over the property line,
Right,
so we can only grant up to the property line.
up to the property line.
So you're going to have to work it out.
With that, but that's fine.
It sounds like you'll come to some conclusion.
Yes,
Okay,
okay.
great.
That's
Okay.
it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
Did they want to come back?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thank you. I just want to say thank you very much.
Okay,
Okay?
sorry. That's okay.
Make a motion to close that case.
Second.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried.
The next case on the agenda is case number 18712, Jennifer and Philip Passarello, 58 Knollcrest Road, Wisconsin. The location of the property is the northeast corner of Knollcrest Road and Laurie Drive. The property is zoned R15. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum front yard setback on Laurie Drive from 45 feet to 12 feet for an existing 119-square-foot wood shed to reduce the front yard setback on Laurie Drive from the lot line from 10 feet to 1 foot for an existing 6-foot PVC fence.
Good evening.
Good evening. Jennifer Passarello, 58 Knollcrest Road, Nesconset, New York. We're just requesting to keep the existing PVC fence and shed that has been in existence for about 30 years now.
Okay. Anything else?
No, that was it.
That was it.
Excuse me?
Yes.
Do you have the green return receipts from your mailings of the letters?
We never got anything.
You never got any green receipts back?
No,
Did you receive any of the letters back?
just one that got returned to sender. That was it. Were we supposed to get something back?
You should have, yes. And these were mailed
On the
April 8th?
Yep, in my timeline.
Yeah.
A lot of my neighbors is my family, and they just probably ripped it up.
Hmm. Green and white certified. Yeah, okay. Affidavits are notarized? Okay,
All right.
thank you.
Anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thank you.
No. Planning?
No, thank you.
Anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor? Aye. Motion carried. Thank you.
The next case on the agenda is case number 18713, Shi Wei, 2 Adrian Court, Hauppauge. The location of the property, the northwest corner of Adrian Court and Adrian Lane. The property is zoned R10. The applicant is requesting a variance to permit environmentally sensitive lands to be altered where depth of groundwater is equal to or less than 10 feet for a proposed 16-foot by 34-foot in-ground swimming pool.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Hui Xiu, and I live in 2 Adrian Court, Hauppauge, New York. I come here because I want a variance for my pool, but I have high water table issue.
Did you have a test hole dug on your property?
Yes, I did.
How deep?
So
before
that
the-
is 6 feet we hit water.
6 feet and then
Yep.
the water, okay. Okay. Anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
How deep is the pool gonna be?
I apply for 8 feet. 8 feet.
8 feet deep?
Yes. Because I have two kids, and I just feels like that is more enjoyable if they can dig in.
You're gonna have to pump the water out as they're,
Yes, downright pool will be all the works.
right.
Yeah.
And all that water really has to be contained on your property. It can't run off onto the neighbor's property.
Even
Yeah.
because I talked to my pool guy, he say he will work on that.
Okay. Any other questions from the board?
No, thanks.
Planning?
No, thank you.
No. Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? No. Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second?
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor? Aye.
Thank you,
Motion carried.
everybody.
Thank you.
The next case on the agenda, case number 18714, Robert Picciurro, 28 Landing Meadow Road, Smithtown. The location of the property, the southeast corner of Landing Meadow Road and Tyler Road. The property is zoned R43. The applicant is requesting variances to reduce the minimum front yard setback on Landing Meadow Road from 60 feet to 55 feet for a proposed 139 square foot front porch, to reduce the front yard setback on Tyler Road from 60 feet to 50 feet for a proposed 920 square foot first floor addition, to reduce the front yard setback on Tyler Road from 60 feet to 36 feet, and reduce the front yard setback on Landing Meadow Road from 60 feet to 58 feet for a proposed 97 square foot addition.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Robert Picciurro, 28 Landing Meadow Road. I'm the owner of the home, and I'm looking to get a request for a minimum front yard setback from 60 feet to 55 on Landing Meadow Road for a front porch for 136 square feet. And because I'm on a corner property, I have 2 front yard setbacks. I'm also doing an extension in the back of 920 square feet. So therefore, I need a front yard setback from 60 feet to 50 feet, and also from 60 feet to 36 feet in the front, because I'm bumping out the front corner of the house 5 feet.
Anything else?
No,
No?
no, that's it.
Anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thank you.
Planning?
No, thank you.
Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second?
Motion's been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next case on the agenda is case number 18711, BSL Smithtown Operation, Inc., 59 St. John Lynn Road, Smithtown. The location of the property is the northeast corner of St. John Lynn Road, New York State Route 25A, and River Heights Drive. The property is zoned R21. The applicant is requesting variances to increase the maximum area of a ground sign from 12 square feet to 38.5 square feet, to increase the maximum height of a ground sign from 5 feet to 7 feet in a residence district.
I have that the power of attorney has been handed in. Okay, fine. Sir, you just
Good evening.
introduce yourself, please?
Yes, hi, good evening, everyone. My name is Richard Bronchick, that's Bronchick, 87 Rhoda Avenue, North Babylon, New York.
Okay.
Ready? Okay. The applicant is the owner of an assisted living facility known as Whisper Woods of Smithtown. The facility was built approximately 4 years ago, and now they would like to put up a sign, a ground sign. The sign, as you can see from the photos, the diagrams that were submitted with the application, and in front of you right down here, it's a very tasteful sign and modest, really modest in size. As Blaise just mentioned, it's 7 feet in height. This is proposed, by the way, proposed sign, and 38.5 square feet. The problem is that the property is zoned residential, and this is not your typical residential property. Residential limits are obviously much smaller, so it's in an area on, it's really in an area on 25A, which is really not a residential neighborhood, and we hope that you'll approve the application.
All right, thank you. Anyone on the board have any questions on this application?
No, thank you.
Planning?
No, thank you.
Anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application?
I want to be heard.
Come on up, please.
When he says it's not a residential neighborhood,
Whoop.
sorry, Diane C. Carroll, 15 Lower Road, bring it down.
Yeah.
15 Lower Road, Smithtown.
There you go.
He's my neighbor. And I was one of the ones that was advocating for the assisted living. When they were trying to take the Baum property and make this assisted living, I had gotten my neighbors together, we tried to support this, and we did support it, because we felt it was a better use for the property, and Mrs. Baum could no longer take care of this very large property that she owned. My problem with what they're doing right now is I've actually gone out to it, because I pass it every morning, whenever I pass it. It is a residential neighborhood. Their backyard is literally my backyard. They have 4 signs up right now. There are 4 signs. And when he says it's a tasteful sign, absolutely, that picture is lovely. They have 4 signs. The first one that they have, which is very similar to what they have here, is 2 feet off the ground. So when they put in their application that it's 5 feet, it's actually 5 feet 10 inches for the sign, and then 4 feet 10 inches. It's a tasteful sign. It's fine, but there's 4 of them. They have 2 on one side of the driveway and 2 on the other. This one has their Whisper Woods name. Then they have their hiring sign. Their hiring sign is 11 feet 3 inches by 4 feet. Then on the other side, they have another sign that says, "Thank you to our first responders." Absolutely, I think it's wonderful. 11 feet by 4 feet. We need 11 feet of a sign. It's a billboard. Now what they're looking to do is increase the sign that they have from it's 12 square feet to 38.5 square feet. You're not doubling your sign, you're tripling it. You're making a billboard in a residential neighborhood. Now, where he's saying he wants to put it on River Heights, there's a problem with River Heights to begin with. There's accidents constantly there because there's no sign, there's no stoplight. You have your senior citizen housing right across the street, so you have a bunch of old people who really shouldn't be driving too much to begin with, trying to cut across traffic. And now you're going to put a gigantic sign. Take away some of your 4 signs and put one nice, decent sign. You have a sign, it says 71, it announces it. There's no reason for it. And here's my other problem. This is a private facility. It's a residential private facility. If you're going to this place, you have an appointment because you're not allowed access. If you go on their website, it says controlled entry access. So you're not allowed on their property without an appointment to begin with. So you need a sign to announce that you're here. They can't miss it because it's a gigantic facility. Not only that, we have right across the street the hospital. I understand the hospital needing a very large sign, but the hospital sign is up on a hill, it's lit, it's decorated, and people need that hospital sign because they're coming for an emergency. There's ambulances, there's ambulettes. This is a private residential facility, and if you're coming to it, you need an appointment so you know where you're going, and you've already Googled it. To put this massive sign in a residential neighborhood, right next to them is houses. They have houses, the entire west side next to them. In back of them is all of our backyards. We're passing this every day. There's no need to put a 38 square foot sign to announce a place that you know you're going to. I would just ask that either they come back down to what they have. They have a sign there. Nobody's missing the place. It's been there approximately 3.5 years. There's no reason for this private residential facility to have such a tremendous presence right on 25A. You do have an apartment complex across the street. He has two tasteful signs, one at the beginning of his property, one at the end of his property. You also have Brookside Multi-Care Nursing Facility right on that road. That is 24-acre campus. They have two signs. I went out and measured, 4.5 feet wide. So a facility that's 24 acres has two signs, 4 feet. This facility that's approximately 5 acres needs 38 square feet. It's not in proportion to, one, the neighborhood, and two, the facility. And I think if it's being accessed for advertisement, you don't need it. It's a assisted living. If you're going there, you know that you're going there. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anyone else would like to speak on this application? No? Sir, would you like to come back to respond?
With respect to the woman who was just speaking, first of all, when you say this huge sign, we're talking about a sign that's 5 feet, proposed 5 feet by 6 feet. I don't really see this as this huge Times Square type of sign. And when she says there are many signs up there, this would be replacing a temporary sign that already is there. So this isn't an extra sign. This is replacing a sign that is describing the facility and what it is. These other signs that she's referring to are banners. They're temporary signs. And we can take them down. There's no problem. I mean, we have pictures. Unfortunately, they're on a phone. We weren't anticipating this issue. But if anyone's been to the property, these signs that she's referring to are just banners, temporary signs, can be taken down. And in fact, across the street, there are other signs on other facilities, basically the same thing. As far as she was mentioning certain that you need appointments, I mean, these are COVID protocols that have come up in the last couple of years. That's why it's difficult in any hospital facility. I've been to visiting people in hospitals recently on several occasions in different types of facilities, such as the health facilities, and it is extremely difficult to get in. You need appointments to get in. So this is nothing special for this facility, and it's only because of COVID. Prior to COVID, the rules are much different, and hopefully after COVID, everything will be relaxed. And did I miss anything? I think that's about it, unless the board has any questions.
No? All right. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
Thank you very much.
Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor? Aye. Motion carried. Thank you.
The next case on the agenda, case number 18680, Maria Reyes, 23 Gilbert Avenue, Smithtown. The location of the property is the northwest corner of Gilbert Avenue and Terry Road. The property is zoned PB. The applicant is requesting a certificate of existing use to maintain a three-family dwelling in the PB zoning district.
Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is John Zolo, attorney for the applicant Maria Reyes. My office is 12 Manor Road, Smithtown, New York. I've submitted the affidavits of posting and mailing along with the certified cards to Mr. Donadio. So I'm here tonight to apply to this board for a certificate of existing use. The property is located at 23 Gilbert Avenue, Smithtown. The property is located on the north side of Gilbert Avenue. There is currently located on the property a two-family house and a one-room cottage. We're asking the board tonight for permission to maintain a separate cottage on the property, authorizing the property to be used for three families. We are also asking this board to grant a certificate of existing use for the cottage that was built in 1957 and granted a certificate of occupancy in 1958. Just a brief description of the surrounding area. If you haven't gone by the area, I'm sure most of you know it. Terry Road and Gilbert Avenue. Where my client's property is, to the north of the property is a sump. To the south, there are properties or residential properties that's similar overlook some ranches and some two-story homes similar to my clients. To the west of the property are residences as well, and to the east are apartments, co-ops, offices, and real estate. So my client purchased this property in January of 2021. Until 1987, this property was zoned E-business. In 1987, the property was rezoned to professional business. A two-family home with attached garage was built and CO'd in 1954. That's a two-family home with an attached garage. The garage was attached by a breezeway. The garage was a 20 by 20 garage attached via breezeway. In 1957, the garage was extended 6 feet by 20 feet and converted to a cottage. It has remained and been used as a cottage since 1958, which is about 63 years ago. We're seeking relief from this board. My client had applied for permits, was issued permits to make renovations to the existing structures. Then the issue of the cottage came up, and the permits were rescinded, and the denial was issued, and we were asked to come to this board to apply for a certificate of existing use. I have several documents I want to present to the board all at once, and I'll go through them after I present them to you. I have enough for every board member and Mr. Donio, so I'll just present those, and I'll go through them after I present them. So thank you. I've just presented several different documents. First, I gave the chairman a set of photographs. There are 4 photos. One photo is of the Reyes house. The second photo is of 28 Terry Road, a house that was built at the same time that this house was built in and around 1954 with a similar layout. I tried to take a good picture of it, but for the 28 Terry Road, but just the way the bushes are in front of the house, it was tough to kind of get a clear photo of that. It was constructed by the same layout, same builder. The third photo is of apartments across the street, which were co-ops, which were rental apartments initially, now they're co-ops. And then the fourth photo is just more apartments down on Gilbert Avenue, just across the street and east of my client's property. Next, I gave you the building zoning ordinance from 1950 that was effective from 1950 to 1962. And I gave you that just basically to show this property was in an E-business district. And the E-business district allowed single-family homes, but I highlighted for you in that article of section 13 of the code also allows other uses that can be approved by the Zoning Board of Appeals. This district was changed in 1987 to professional business. Then I gave you a collection of several documents that has the cover on the survey from 1967 that shows and describes the cottage as a one-story frame dwelling. So that survey from 1967, prepared by a licensed surveyor, depicts the two-family dwelling and the one-story frame dwelling. I gave you a 1954 certificate of occupancy that shows, two-story family house with attached garage connected by a breezeway that was granted a certificate of occupancy in 1954. Next document in that package is a 1958 certificate of occupancy for a garage converted to dwelling. It shows a 6 by 20 foot expansion of the existing garage, and on that certificate of occupancy from 1958 for the garage, it shows and describes addition to dwelling. It describes that garage addition as a dwelling. I also gave the electrical underwriter certificate from 1958, which shows a meter being, that record of a meter being installed on the cottage. And then a document that I think is telling is from the assessor's office. It's 2 pages. The first is the note where they write the handwritten notes, and a couple of things on there I just thought were interesting. First of all, to the left, you'll see 5/59, initials looks like HM or NM. Then it talks about, it has also the history of who owned this property from Ridgely to the current owner, and I'll go through that once I have a statement from a person who used to live there. And then on the second, and if you notice on this same page, you'll see with the asterisk towards the bottom, star 1292, December of 92, 2 phone numbers in Coles. One is Robert Cuthouse, and the other one is Ann Murphy. Robert Cuthouse was a tenant who lived there for several years, and Ann Murphy was Bernadette Murphy's mother, who was a prior owner before it passed to her children. Going to the second page, which I highlighted in red, and I didn't highlight stuff because you can't find it. I just thought it was easy when I'm trying to describe it to you, so your eyes go right to it. If you look at the top of that record, it says 1959, garage to living quarters. 1959 from the assessor's office. If you look at the drawing on there, it says garage, and then inside the garage it says living quarters, and then it talks about it's handwritten 1959 with a 6 by 20 foot extension. And then to the right, where they show how it's assessed, you'll see next to letter F, 520, 2.91, 520 corresponds to the area of the total garage, which I believe was being treated as living quarters. So you have the town going out in the field, making notes, town records, identifying this as living quarters. And the last page is just a history of James Murphy, who was the person who actually did the addition for the cottage to the prior owner, just making notes, and this is from May 12th of 1993, of the different documents that he had in his possession that he passed along to his children and his family, just to make a record of the documents supporting that this cottage was legally modified and made living quarters. So those are the documents that I believe substantiate the town's acceptance, approval, or ratifying of this garage converted to living space. It's been there since 1958, and again, the certificate of occupancy talks about this addition to dwelling, and several of the town records that I gave you indicate and verify that this garage was converted to living quarters. The last thing I gave you was a statement from Bernadette Murphy, and you have a choice. I'd like all these documents in the record. I could read through the whole statement if you want me to, but she was I'll give you a brief summary. And Bernadette Murphy's in Florida right now. She couldn't be here. I was hoping to do a Zoom type of video of her coming in today, but we're not allowed to do that, apparently because of the rules. And so Bernadette Murphy is currently 72 years of age. And she was, if you go through, she was born in Brooklyn. Her family moved to 269 Terry Road, Smithtown in 1959. In 1964, her family owned 99 Smithtown Boulevard. And she lived in Smithtown with her family from 1964 to 71, moved away and came back. This statement is submitted in support of the application of Maria Reyes for a certificate of existing use. I'll read it slowly. Or just have it in the record? Would you like me to read the whole thing or just incorporate into the record? The statement. I'll just read it slowly. I'll go through
All
it.
right.
Okay. I will go slowly. I tend to speak quickly, and I apologize. So the statement that was signed by Bernadette Murphy is as follows. I was born on June 25, 1949, and I am 72 years old. I am unable to attend the zoning board hearing because I am temporarily in Florida. I was born in Brooklyn, in New York. My family and I moved to 269 Terry Road, Smithtown in 1955. The postal address was changed in later years to 278 Terry Road, Smithtown in 1956. I lived there with my family and my maternal grandmother until 1964. In 1964, my family moved to 99 Smithtown Boulevard, Smithtown, and I lived there with my family from 1964 until 1971. I have lived in the town of Smithtown and the surrounding area almost all of my life. I lived in Maryland for 1 year and was employed by the Prince George County School District as a teacher from September 1971 through June 1972. I returned home and back to Long Island July 1973 to 23 Gilbert Avenue, Smithtown, and began my 30-plus year career in education. I moved my then young daughter in 1976 to my current address of 10 Woodbury Road, Hauppauge. The statement is submitted in support of the application of Maria Reyes for a certificate of existing use for the property located at 23 Gilbert Avenue, Smithtown, New York, located at the corner of Terry Road just behind Smithtown Boulevard, and is based upon my personal knowledge of the facts and circumstances herein. I further submit and make this statement to affirm and verify that the subject property has been used as a two-family home with a separate rental cottage on the property since around 1959. About 3/10 of a mile from 99 Smithtown Boulevard is 23 Gilbert. 23 Gilbert was originally known as Terry Road because Gilbert did not yet exist. I have been informed that 23 Gilbert Avenue was built in 1954. The house that was built, I have come to learn, was a two-story Cape-style home with a two-bedroom apartment on the first floor and a two-bedroom apartment on the second floor. There was a detached structure that was connected to the main building by an open breezeway. The house next door, 248 Terry Road, was originally designed in a similar way. The original owner of the 23 Gilbert Avenue property was, to the best of my recollection, Mr. Ridgely. And that you'll see in the assessor's record is correct. He was a builder in Smithtown and built many of the homes known in the area as the Ridgely Park, including 23 Gilbert Avenue. Sometime around 1958, 1959, the detached structure was expanded by 6 feet and finished to be used as an apartment, which we refer to as the one-bedroom apartment. Mr. Ridgely hired Hutchins and Murphy, my father's company, to convert the two-car garage at 23 Gilbert Avenue into an apartment. I was under the impression, based upon conversations with friends and family, that there was a need for housing at the time for veterans coming back from the Korean War. Mr. Ridgely, I was told, was making additional housing to meet the needs for veterans housing. When my father purchased the home at 23 Gilbert Avenue from Charles and Olga Lovell in 1967, he rented a small apartment to a single woman, Mary McInerney, and her young daughter. Mary McInerney was legally blind and could not drive. She worked at the local Charles Marcus's store on Smithtown Boulevard, now known as Panico's. She was able to walk there and worked 6 to 7 days a week. My father never raised her rent in the 15 to 18 years they lived at 23 Gilbert. Her daughter Bridget got married, moved to Connecticut, and took her mom with her. I was always told that these two-family homes with attached cottages were built to provide housing for servicemen and women coming from the Korean War. In the last 40 years, my family and I provided homes for seniors as well as young couples who had a difficult time finding housing in Smithtown. The cottage housed the seniors listed below. Edward Gregory was a senior citizen. He lived in a small apartment for a short time. He passed shortly after. Geraldine Edholm was a senior citizen and lived there in the mid-1980s. Jerry was a single woman. Shortly after she moved in, Jerry realized she was having difficulty paying her bills. She applied for assistance from what we remember as a rental
I think you're
assistance.
going a little too fast.
Yeah.
Oh, I apologize.
Why don't we just give this
I'm
to her?
sorry. Geraldine Edhold was a senior citizen and lived there in the mid-1980s. Jerry was a single woman. Shortly after she moved in, Jerry realized that she was having difficulty paying her bills. She applied for assistance from what we remember as a rental assistance program through the town of Smithtown. The apartment was inspected by an official of the program. I was there when it was inspected. The woman came out with a clipboard, then grinning from ear to ear, said to my mother, "This is a beautiful apartment." My mom was so relieved. Jerry stayed there until she moved in with her daughter after the birth of a grandchild. Robert Cuthouse was a senior citizen. Robert Cuthouse is also the person who's on the assessor's records from 1992. He was the father-in-law of the then Secretary to Town Supervisor Patrick Vecchio. Mr. Cuthouse's son and daughter-in-law came to inspect the apartment in hopes that my parents would rent to him, as they lived very close by. When he passed, the last tenant moved in. Adrian Carafel. Adrian, a senior, lived in the apartment for approximately 18 years. We raised her rent twice during that time. Adrian moved out in April and May of 2021 after the home was sold. The documentation from the project to support this claim I found in my father's records when we were selling the house, and is as follows. Certificate of occupancy dated August 19, 1958, referring to the completed project of adding an addition onto the structure and identified as a dwelling. A property survey dated September 6, 1967, referring to the cottage as a one-story frame dwelling attached to the house by the breezeway, and the New York Board of Fire Underwriters Electrical Inspection Certificate dated November 17, 1958, identifying the additional Lil Comida added to service this new cottage. The cottage has never been connected to the house. Based upon paperwork from about 60 years ago, the only form of attachment is a concrete walkway with a roof over it, referred to as a breezeway. My parents did not buy 23 Gilbert until 1967, during my first year of college. However, I have firsthand knowledge as it relates to this home from prior years to my family's ownership. Before my parents purchased 23 Gilbert, my family and I lived just around the corner at 99 Smithtown Boulevard. As was typical of Smithtown at that time, my family and I knew most everyone in the surrounding neighborhood. This included the Lovells, who owned the house at that time, and later sold it to my parents a few years later. I have a recollection of the construction and the completion of the cottage as it stands today. I can remember my father's interest in this project and his discussion with Mr. Ridgely as the cottage construction was progressing. It was unknown to us at that time that my parents would end up purchasing this home in the coming years. They eventually moved into the main house, downstairs apartment in 1981, and remained there until their deaths in 2003. We made the difficult decision to sell this home 17 years after the death of our parents. The first day in the market, we had 2 offers for purchase. We were at the open house that day when we met Nicholas and Maria. Nicholas had such vision for the home. He was very excited discussing how he would modernize the house and the small apartment that he referred to as the cottage. The Reyes family already made updates to the apartments on this property. The care and attention to detail shown with all the refurbishments done thus far are cause for optimism regarding the future of our home. The modernization undertaken here while still maintaining the character of the home, are wonderful to see. I am especially looking forward to seeing the changes to the cottage when completed. For these reasons, therefore, I ask the board to approve Ms. Reyes' request to maintain the cottage and issue a certificate of existing use. I submit this statement knowing that the town of Smithtown may rely upon it to establish the fact that the subject property was utilized as a 2-family home with a separate rental cottage on the property from prior to 1960 through the present. Signed, Bernadette Murphy, with witnesses Cornelius Wade and Deirdre Koletsky. Thank you for allowing me to read that into the record. So, unusual case. I think that all the actions by the town, this property has been in existence since 1958, granted certificate of occupancy for dwelling, inspections performed by the town as a dwelling, and if you look at Section 13 of the code from 1950, it authorized, while it said one-family dwellings for e-business, the Board of Zoning Appeals was granted authority to approve other uses. I highlighted section 13, and what I'm submitting to this board is that there's no doubting for the last 60-plus years, this property's been used as a rental college. The records support it. The statement of Bernadette Murphy, who's intimately familiar and watched all the construction go on. The tenants that have lived there, some of them who actually were relatives of people who worked in the town, are very strong indicators that this was there, used and approved by the town. And I'm just asking this board, and I believe that it has, this board is pursuant to 32277 of the code, is the board that has the authority to direct the building official to issue a certificate of existing use. The conversions were applied for, building permits were granted, inspections done, and there was nothing hidden, nothing was done secretly. It was all done with approval and oversight of the town. So for all the reasons stated, for all documents submitted, this board has the authority to grant a certificate of existing use. And I think, again, if you take a look at the building code from 1950, that Article 13 contemplates other uses in the E-business district. So there were, and it's not specific, and again, I think this is all kind of the town just figuring that, the town officials thinking that this application and granting the building permit and approving a certificate of occupancy for the conversion of garage to dwelling is all part of that approval process. So I thank you for your time and your patience. Maria Reyes is here if you have any questions for her. If you have any questions for me, I thank you for your time.
The cottage,
Yes.
does that have a separate mailing address?
Does it have a separate mailing address? I saw 3 mailboxes in the photo. There are 3 mailboxes in front, but I don't believe it has a separate mailing address. I think it's,
It's just 123.
yes, not a separate mailing address, because it's all part of the same property.
Okay.
So it's 23 Gilbert.
All right.
Anyone have any?
Anyone on the board
Yeah,
have
a couple
questions?
questions. Mr. Zolo, did you have an opportunity to look at the property card in the building department?
I relied on the certificates of occupancy.
Is there a property card that kind of
I didn't
details
have
all these permits that were issued? Because usually there is for each property.
I didn't. I don't have those. I thought I had them in the file, but I didn't.
Okay.
But I was relying on certificates of occupancy that were issued.
That, I agree with you on the 2-family. There's no clear-cut document that says that garage was converted to a dwelling. And typically that would be, if that were the case, it would be on that property card if that was what was inspected. So that's that. And I guess my only other question would be, was there any zoning appeals application made for, you say in that Article 13 that the Board of Zoning Appeals has the authority to grant whatever use deemed appropriate. Do you know if an application was ever made before a zoning board?
There's no record of one. And yes, I saw that and I figured you would read that because it says you may make one. I don't believe any was made. I don't have, there's no record of that.
Okay.
But that's what I'm saying. I think the town, everyone just went along and approved it and no one objected to it.
Okay. All right, thanks, John.
Anyone else? Planning?
Everybody has in their packet a 2-page copy of the building department Laserfiche printout, which shows the property class code for the property known as 220, which is a 2-family dwelling. And that information is on the first page. On the second page, there's 2 highlighted items. One is dated May 21st, and the other is dated August 10th. The comments for those two entries are construction being done on top of the garage, no permit has been issued. And the second is that interior work was being performed without a permit, and apparently there was a complainant by a neighbor that had concerns that a 3rd apartment was being constructed. I'm not aware of a code from the assessor's office that is a code for a three-family dwelling. I don't know if one code exists such as that. Generally speaking, when we talk about multiple dwelling units in commercial zoning, once we're past 2 dwelling units, we're usually talking about accessory apartments.
Okay.
That's it.
All right. Is there anyone in the audience like to be heard on this application? Can I have a motion to close the application, please?
So moved.
Second.
Motion has been made to close the application. It's been seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion carried. Thank
Thank you
you.
very much. Good night, everybody.
Good night. And that concludes our meeting for tonight.